You love the title. Thank you. I tried a slightly more, the title was top tier. I'm glad everybody loves the title. I feel such a struggle with how to title, especially the live streams, because I feel like it doesn't really matter, especially because I private these anyway. But yeah, and then also just like on my regular videos, it's I don't know. I know that clickbait titles do better, but I also want to be above clickbait titles. But that's not the, that's not the game. So the technique low brass players don't want you to. There you go. Yeah, maybe this just turns into everyone gives me all of the clickbait titles that I should use. I mean, do you guys want, sensationalize YouTube content, like, compare $300 mouthpiece to cheapest mouthpiece on Amazon? That's definitely like the YouTube way. Got done with recording your auditions. That's awesome. Hopefully you did well. Election results show that the Neptune won the presidency. I think the Neptune would make a good president, really fair. Only 1% can play this. Or like, I played the lowest note on tuba like recorded by mankind. Yeah, don't forget to smash that like button. For the algorithm. You must do it for the algorithm. This tuba mouthpiece will destroy the United States Electoral College. Blow your mind. Oh, how's it going, Danny? Good to see you on here. Let's see here. So it's funny. I actually got a copyright claim for playing the Lebedev on stream the other day, which isn't like a super bad thing. It just, but I think for a while I might go without the copywritten solo stuff. So excerpts and etudes is kind of what I'm thinking right now. Yeah, 0.0% of the people that watch this video are subscribed, as shown by this graph. Yeah, I think my numbers are slightly higher than 0.0, but I know that is the thing. But that's how it works. Obviously, I want everybody else to just subscribe to my channel, but I'd be lying if I said I subscribe to every channel that I watched a video from. Well, it wasn't even that they thought it was a recording. It's that the melody itself is also copywritten. So, what you're saying can happen too, and it has happened to me. But yeah, it was the melody of the Lebedev specifically that it's all artificial intelligence, but the artificial intelligence was able to pick it out and say, that's the Lebedev. How's it going, Brady? We'll welcome you with open arms when the time comes. Let's see. I taught my last masterclass on the all-state stuff for Texas, so I'd be pretty happy to not play any of those for a long time. Let's see here. Let's do some good old Blažević. And as usual, feel free to ask any questions that you guys might have. Let's see here. Trying to find a good Blažević etude to play. Do you have a linked social media? I guess I didn't put a link in the description or anything, but you want to go to my Instagram, it's the same name, Low Brass U. So that's pretty much the only social media that is, a part of this account. I mean, I technically have a Facebook, but I really don't use it, and it'll probably be deactivated again soon. But yeah, I mean, you can find Low Brass U. Any double tonguing tips? Had an issue with it as a player in high school and one tune in my ska band. Yeah, so I think the biggest thing with multiple tonguing is I almost died playing the tuba. Gone wrong. Cops called. The thing with multiple tonguing for me is I have to practice it really consistently, because I actually have a pretty fast single tongue, so I don't use double tongue very often. But then when I need to, I really need to, and because I don't use it very often, it's kind of neglected. So that's something that I do in my regular practice. The first thing is just getting those syllables down, being able to say dugga 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 dugga, just getting really comfortable with that. And then another trick that I use that I don't think a lot of people do is I use just the alternate syllable. So in the case of double tonguing, for double tonguing, common syllables, either a D and a G sound or like a T and a K sound, depending on what you're kind of after. And so what I do is I'll practice something with just the kind of opposite. So I'll play a little bit of an etude here, and I'll play it using only that secondary syllable. Because the biggest problem is that you're always going to be better at the normal syllable because you use it, 100 to 1, if not more. You only use that secondary syllable when you're double tonguing, and all the time you're single tonguing, you're using that D or T sound. So sometimes it's good to just practice that other syllable. So I'll play a little bit with that, and it won't sound as good as my normal articulation, but practice enough where it sounds pretty good, I think. So I'll do something like that, just play an etude, and obviously, I could have played it better if I used my normal articulation, but it kind of helped out that thing. And sometimes I'll just play scales like that. Those are the sorts of things that I work on. And then, I'll play scales where I'll do an exercise like this. And so on. So exercises like that are what I kind of work on for my double tonguing. I'll admit it's been a little bit since I've worked on it. Probably should get back on that. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the important thing with double tonguing. It's just you just have to be spending time doing it. I think that's really important. So yeah, that would be my advice. I'm going to go back and play that same etude, but with actually normal syllables. A little Blazevich. What number is that one? 19. I put no effort in memorizing numbers from etude books. Let's see here. I know no one's asked me my favorite method book, but I'm pretty sure Blazevich is it. It's the first one. It's a good book. There definitely are some etudes that I don't like in it, but there are enough really good ones that I like it. Yeah, overall, I thought the TME etudes were fun. They just start to get less fun as time goes on. I think that especially as students, most people are probably thinking about how much they have to spend with those etudes. But for teachers, it might be worse. We spend a lot of time because at least for me, I pretty much feel like I should be able to play them pretty much perfectly for students. So I have to work on them myself first. And then, especially since I did all the videos on YouTube, I had to work on them, I had to record them, I had to listen back to myself and say, that wasn't good enough, do it again a bunch of times. And then, then I had to listen to it while I was doing all the video editing and matching up the music on the screen and all of those sorts of things. So, basically we get tired of them too. What are some you don't particularly like from Blazevich? That's a good question. Sometimes I think that it's not necessarily a specific one, but I guess I don't like number 33, which just looking at it, so it's 2 pages long and it's in 6/16, and in every single measure except for the last one, there are 6/16 notes in them. So, and it's supposed to be fast. So it's like, am I really going to play this all in one breath? No, I guess I'm going to have to leave notes out. And it just seems like technical for no reason. And you just look at that one and I don't think it looks like you want to play it. Hot cross buns, fine. Because I'm that much of a pushover, I guess, today. So I hope that was worth the price of admission. Are you going to do the A flat thing? Got tuba 2. I've been low key having trouble. I'm not sure what that means, DJ Woomy. Yeah, if you can just clarify, it might be able to help. How do you make pedal tones notes sound like notes? Mine just sound like farts. Yeah, I mean, especially with like high notes and low notes, it's, a squeak or a rumble down there. It's, that's tomorrow's note today. We're getting down there. So that's kind of the first start. A lot of what I do is kind of doing octave things. So I'll either do some sort of pattern that kind of gives me a sense of pitch and then goes down. So one of those patterns, one of my professors wrote out a sheet once, and it's called the Bruckner exercise because it's from Bruckner 4. And then sometimes I'll just do octaves to kind of help settle in that pitch. Because at some point, even if you're using the correct fingerings or something, if you're not hearing it, it's not really going to mean anything, especially on the extreme low end. A flat major, piece for region. Yeah, if you're talking about ATSSB, I did that one. Yeah. Yeah, I probably could do a better job of organizing them in playlists or something. Yeah, I haven't really given that much thought of how best to do that. You would think that YouTube would see, oh, ATSSB, Etude 1, and you watched that and you liked it. Oh, why don't I give you ATSSB, Etude 2? But I don't think that's quite exactly how it works. So, but yeah, for this year, I did every single low brass TMEA Etude. So euphonium, tenor trombone, bass trombone, tuba. I did all the jazz ones, tenor trombone and bass trombone. And then ATSSB, I did, those 2 etudes for tuba, bass trombone, tenor trombone, euphonium. I just didn't do the jazz etudes. But other than that, I pretty much did all of them for the state of Texas this year. No guarantees that that's an every year thing. I'd like it to be, but it is really time consuming. And, some of them, especially like bass trombone or something, that can reach a kind of a small market. So, but yeah, it wasn't ordered, so I had a hard time seeing them. Yeah, no problem. But yeah, so hopefully I know YouTube has its own way of doing searching and things that may not always be just keyword based, but hopefully they're easy to find. Yeah, I thought about doing other places. I'll probably do the Illinois ones because at least they have for a long time been static. And I assume that they will stay static for a while. Obviously, they could change at any point, but that's definitely something I've considered doing. They take a long time. And one is practicing them. I mean, obviously that's not nothing, but that's part of it. Is I have to practice them, then I have to record them and do all the video editing, everything. So. Not saying that it's not worth my time if it doesn't get 90,000 views like my one All-State video from last year, but I have ones that have like 700 views from this year, and I'm not trying to say that that's not worth it because I'm sure that there's someone who's watching that and it is happy to have that, but it took me a lot of time, and I'm not making money off of YouTube, at least not at this point in time, and even if I start at some point, it probably won't be that significant. But yeah, in California, I've thought about because they do solos. In a perfect world, I want this channel to literally have every etude that you could need, every solo that you could need, every excerpt that you could need. But kind of honing in and figuring out where to start with that is a little bit tricky. So I think the next things that'll be up are orchestral excerpts, probably starting with tuba. What do thumb triggers on some tubas do? So if you have this fifth valve right here, so what that does is essentially in between first valve. It's longer than first valve and not as long as 1 and 2. So if I play those kind of in order. So the reason why that's helpful, because that seems silly, right? Why would you need like a quarter tone in there? But it helps in the low range because you can use it for different notes that you start to lose quality fingerings if you only have 4 valves. So for example, since I assume most people are B flat tuba players, and the ones that, if you play C tuba, you probably have 5 valves. But so if I'm playing a B flat tuba, we'll pretend this is a B flat tuba, even though it's not. We get down to low F, 4th valve, right? And then low E, and we don't really go much lower than that. But this 5th valve would help with that low E flat. So you're hearing a low F, but we're imagining that it's a B flat, low E flat on a B flat tuba. So if I played that 1 and 4, which would kind of make logical sense, I want to go down a half step from F, or a whole step from F, I'll use that whole step valve that we think it is. And you can hear if I lip it down, it sounds bad because I'm finding the instrument. If I don't lip it down, it sounds okay, but it's almost to an F sharp. So that's more or less what its purpose is. And then also getting into the extreme low range, it adds one note that you could play on a 4-valve instrument, but is quite challenging. Like it involves pulling slides and isn't a practical note to play. And that's that half step above the main pedal note. So since this is a C tuba, like that low D flat for me is all 5 valves down. So without that, I could maybe, pull my 1st valve slide, come back here, pull my 4th valve slide, but it would be a huge hassle and isn't something that I can really kind of feasibly do on the fly. So that's what the 5th valve does. And that's basically, so there are multiple, you can make the 5th valve in other lengths, but what I just explained is the most common. There is another one that's longer, but I wouldn't, if you're new to 5th valves, I wouldn't worry about its existence just yet. Let's see. Where would you recommend I put my mic for a jazzy sound on trombone? So that's a good question. I probably go a little bit different than a lot of people. And there's what people call, microphone hugging. And certain people do that and they sound great doing it, but that's never really been my style. What microphone hugging is, you play so soft, but then you get the microphone in pretty deep, which you get the proximity effect, which basically means that you get more bass frequencies based off of how the microphone works. So it will make it sound like your sound is kind of richer and fuller than it might actually be, or it just captures in a different way. I shouldn't say it that way. But I've never really been great at that style. That's kind of like a Bill Watrous thing, if you're familiar with him. I would say in general, most jazz trombone players play relatively close to the mic, but there's, I would just experiment with it and figure out what you like. Because your trombone, your playing, all of those sorts of things make a difference. So that's what I would do. I'm actually a little bit further back when I play usually, but that's just kind of my personal choice. Let's see. Yeah, Illinois on the rotating bases. Yeah, I'm aware of that. And they've been the same for a long time. I used to teach in Illinois, so I've worked on all of them. But Indiana's like 20 measures from 2 books, very easy. Yeah, and it's like I could do a bunch of them. I would assume that most of them are something I could handle, but it would just be a lot of time, and everyone's like, why can't you do my state? Why can't you do my state? And certain states are smaller markets. The reason why you do Texas is because it reaches the most people, based off of numbers and based off of just competitive bands being a part of it so much. So I very much appreciate the videos and helping me with rhythms and notes so much. Yeah, no problem. That's definitely what it's there for. I would encourage everyone to not just memorize the sound of the rhythms from me or someone else playing them, but to also really understand the rhythms and really be subdividing. Can you teach me how to play a concert F? I'm trying to make it on all state on tuba. Do you just mean like to play that one note? It probably won't get you very far in all state. Why do tubas have 7 to 8 valves? Yeah, looks like we got some answers. Just helps make it more in tune, optimal. Yeah, and then someone said F-tubas will sometimes have a seventh valve as a second valve kicker. So yeah, that's definitely true. To my knowledge, there's not a 7-valve or 8-valve tuba that is commercially available. I could be wrong. I mean, you could put 100 valves on a tuba if you really wanted to. There's no technical limitation to that. It's just how many valves are the most expensive part. So do you really want to put a bunch of unnecessary valves on an instrument? So usually when you see something that looks like 7 or 8, like an example is the Alessandro Fossi model from BNS. And that model has 4, like here, it doesn't have a 5th valve. And then it has what looks like 3 valves over here. And the first one is the 5th valve, which is the same as my 5th valve over here. It's just placed differently. The second is the 6th valve, which is in between 2nd valve and 1st valve in length. So that's a long second. And then the 3rd valve, like Theo said, is a 2nd valve slide kicker. So I actually do have a 2nd valve slide kicker on here. You can see this right here popping out. But there are some that look exactly like valves. And they're these same paddles, not valves, I should say. So they look exactly like these, but these are all just simple machines. So let's see here. Do most professional tuba players play C and F tuba instead of B flat? Yeah, Tuba Man had a pretty good answer. In America, yes. In Germany, B flat, and F. In England, E flat and B flat. Yeah, that's even today, that's a regionalized question. I will say that I think Tuba Man's answer is not wrong, but maybe slightly out of date. I do think that the world in general is changing. Those are definitely the stereotypes, and you still find a lot of people who do those things. But there also are a lot of Germans, in professional orchestras and things like that who do play C tuba these days. And in England too, there are people who are playing C tuba. So it's not that cut and dry, but it definitely used to be, British brass bands, B flat and E flat all the time. And they, especially when you're kind of patriotic, you want to play what your country plays, and you don't want to necessarily conform to what everybody else is doing in the world. So that was a thing for a long time. And basically C tuba in America, a lot of the orchestral stuff of playing large C tubas, they just were cutting down B flat tubas, and that's kind of what they were doing. So, but yeah, in the United States, I would say that if you're a professional tuba player playing in an orchestra, it also depends on what you're doing. Professional is a vague term. Are you a gigging professional? I mean, you can basically play whatever you want. Do you teach and play some gigs? You could play whatever you want. But if you're playing in a major orchestra in this country, most of the time you're playing C tuba. If you're not playing C tuba, you're probably playing F. But B flat tuba, even in this country, has become more common among professionals to play in orchestras. Definitely still as like a third instrument or third key of instrument, but that's definitely something. But yeah, it's a person-to-person situation, and E flat tuba in the United States has become more popular, and yeah, there's so much leeway in that. And when you hear some Germans play B flat tuba, you would never say anything like professionals don't play B flat tuba, because there's some Germans who just sound amazing on B flat tuba. And I'm sure there are other people from other nationalities too, but I can think of a few just like German players that I've heard, just that you'd hear them play B flat and you wouldn't think, oh, that sounds tubby or that sounds too big or sloppy or something like that. So do I have a favorite trombone fanfare? I don't know if this one totally counts, but I really like the Vienna fanfare that they play, which has trombones, but it's not specifically just trombones. Let's see. Is there any reason as to why B flat tuba isn't preferred in the professional world? So I think I kind of covered that a little bit, but I'll kind of go into a little bit more detail of that. Some of it is convention, and at the end of the day, the length of the instrument determines the pitch. So this is a C tuba. It's 16 feet in length, roughly. And a B flat tuba is 18 feet in length. This F tuba over here, that's a little bit too far off screen, that's 12 feet in length. So having 2 less feet in this or length of tubing it theoretically, makes the instrument respond a little bit better. People talk about how it has less of a rumble, that it's a little bit more of kind of a pure sound. But it's, at some level, especially in this country, all of the best instruments that we get over here are generally C tubas. So you'd have to go really out of your way to get some of the really, really fancy, nice B flat tubas. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's a little bit clearer. That's not to say you couldn't be clear on B flat tuba. But if you were asking me to trade my C tuba for a B flat tuba, I would never do it. But yeah, so that's something to kind of think about, is the clarity, and also the fact that it being a step higher on any key of tuba, we're never running out of technical limitations of low notes. The lowest note that you really have to play on tuba is probably a pedal B flat, which can be played on any key of tuba. So the kind of logic is, if we go up, we still have access to all the low stuff, but then we can play higher a little bit easier. I mean, you can play high in any key of tuba. These are very general things that I even hate saying because I don't fully agree with them, but they do have some level of truth to them. Let's see. Which tuba brand do you prefer, Miraphone or B&S? I don't necessarily have a strong preference for one over the other officially. This is a VMI, but it's it was a subsidiary of B&S. And if you buy this tuba today, it's a custom order thing, but it'll come with a B&S stamp. And then my F tuba is B&S. So I have 2 tubas. They're both from B&S. I have 0 Miraphone. The only Miraphone products I have Miraphone springs in my euphonium. So I guess, you could say that I have a preference for B&S, but Miraphone makes some really great tubas. I just, happen to not own them. They don't really make a large 6-quarter C. They make some really good 5-quarter Cs. But, this tuba that I got here was my high school teacher's, and I bought it from him. I wasn't looking at other tubas. He was like, I'm thinking about selling this tuba, and I'll give you a really good deal. It just made sense to buy it. It wasn't like I was comparing this to a Miraphone 186. I just got this, and then my F tuba was pretty much the one that I wanted. But yeah, Miraphone makes some great tubas. I really like the Electra. I like the Petrushka. I'd probably, if I had limitless funds, I would probably buy Petrushka tomorrow. I like some of their giant B flats, the Hagen and the Siegfried. Again, if I had limitless funds, I'd buy a Hagen tomorrow, but then I would have a $17,000 tuba that I have no super purpose for, other than maybe showing the 17 people on this live stream. And even a 186, I really like 186s too. Let's see here. For F tubas, how many valves do you recommend? 5, 6, or more? Yeah, you should definitely have at least 100 valves. I think 5 is enough. I would say, because the flip side of it is, are more valves always better? From a logistical side of things, yes, more valves is always better. But for other reasons, it's not always better. For sound, I'm not going to say that I can hear a 6-valve tuba and say that it's a 6-valve tuba and it doesn't sound as good as a 5-valve tuba. But I think you have to think about it a little bit, about how each of these, even though it's just a slight twist and turn to get in and out of the valve, you're adding twists and turns, which for the most part, we're not super excited about adding those. So I think that's something to kind of consider. And there's also the cost. When you're comparing a 5 to a 6 valve in the same model, brand new, it's probably going to cost you another $1,000, or maybe not quite that much, but around there, for a valve that you're almost never going to use. It gets you out of a couple of pickles. They're like the spot in the Vaughan Williams where you start on a low F, that big run where you play low F and then low G flat. You're doing this, and there's some other solo pieces too that you have to do that, like the Ben Miles contraptions. You have to play dot 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 dot, F G flat really quickly, and that's a struggle. And if you had a 6 valve, you could play all 6 for the low F to the first 5 for the G flat. So you could do that, which is a lot easier to coordinate than this, and there wouldn't be as much kind of resistance change. So, 6 valves officially is better. I don't think it's worth the expense for me, and I am a little bit disinterested in the idea of having an extra turn. I wouldn't mind a 6 valve tuba though. If they were the same price, I'd probably go for the 6 valve. But also the other thing too, that a lot of 6 valves are 4+2, and I wouldn't want that, and I would have to have it changed to 5-in-1, which would cost more money to change. I wouldn't really like that. So that's a little bit of my thoughts. I mean, I don't think there are too many people who will say you need 6 valves. I would say that you need 5. Like a 4-valve F tuba to me is only as good as, it's only good for putting a 5th valve on it, just because there's so many limitations with a 4-valve F tuba. Even John Fletcher used a giant CC Holton 345. Exactly. And, he was friends with a lot of Americans, and I'm sure that influenced things because, the Holton, that's a very traditional American instrument that was then cut down to C. And then I think they started making some as well that started as C tubas. But yeah, so John Fletcher's not even, that was a long time ago, I should say, that he was doing that. So, there are always going to be people who go against things, especially, I would say, like, you think about it a little bit as the world got more kind of globalized. At one point in time, you weren't playing an instrument that wasn't made in the country that you lived in, right? Or at least the continent. We didn't have a ton of, European instruments until like the 60s and into the 70s was when they came more common over here. Because it's just not how the world worked, but yeah, so that's a little bit with the keys of tubas. What tuba is that? This flare is huge. This is a VMI Mill Culbertson Neptune 6/4 C tuba with 5 valves. So that's the tuba it is. It's I've had it for, I don't know. I've had it since I was a freshman in high school, so I've had it a long time. So yeah, it's a great instrument. It's played well for me over the years. They don't make it anymore as a regular instrument, but I think you can still order it. I'm sure they still have the design, but yeah, it was it sold okay, but it was, I think that I heard once that they were losing money when they made them, which that seems kind of like nonsense to me, but what do I know about selling tubas? Are you a main tubist or trombonist? Good question. I would say that my main instrument is the instrument that's in my hands. So right now, I'm a bass trombonist. Right now, I'm a tubist, and I'm too lazy to go get anything else. But that's how I think about it. And if you want like a little less of a vague answer, it's still really hard for me to answer because I have more degrees in tuba. Does that make me a main tubist over a trombonist? But I make more money playing a trombone than I do a tuba. Does that make me more of a trombonist than it does a tubist? So I really don't think that way for myself personally. Although I couldn't stay long, this was very informational. Thank you so much. Yeah, get on that math homework. Good luck. You have a Wessex F that has 6, and it's taken me a while to get used to the 4+2 after using 5 on one hand for my C. Yeah, I don't like 4+2. I mean, maybe that's just because it's mostly because I haven't played it. You would get used to it. But my F tuba actually was a 4+1 when I got it. So it was 4 here, and then it wasn't a 5th valve here. It was a 5th valve back here that's left thumb operated, which is kind of rare. But you do see from time to time in some German instruments. And keep in mind, this instrument's from 1972, so it's older, and there weren't as many conventions for how to do 5th valves at that point in time. So I had it flipped, which is something that you can do. It's it could be costly, but essentially so what had to happen was this valve had to be unsoldered from all of these points, flipped around, and then all of these things had to be put in again. And then this whole linkage to the 5th valve had to be custom done. And so what's really nice for me personally is that the 5th valve, its location was designed for my hand. So I went into the repair shop, and it's just like, this is my hand. This is the natural thing for my hand. So it's pretty much exactly where I'd want it, which you pretty much never get that on an instrument. That it's exactly the hand position that you hope it to be. So that's kind of a nice thing to have done. But yeah, it was a pretty substantial job. I was without the instrument for a while. I'm fortunate that I did that while I was an undergrad at the University of North Texas, and they have a repair shop there. So I don't even know if it cost me anything. If it did, it was pretty cheap. But yeah, it was a whole ordeal. The piano technician made the spring, and it works just great. You wouldn't know that this isn't like a factory thing if you looked at it. But yeah, it was. I think I was out without my instrument for about a week, which is never the most fun. Notice there's no thumb ring on your F. Do you prefer that, or is it because you customized the instrument and it wasn't there in the first place? So it was there. You can't see a star on this one because you can. If I brought it close enough to the camera, you might be able to see it, but it's very, very faint. There was a thumb ring, and I still have it. I don't use it, but you'll notice on my C tuba, you can see a pretty huge scar from where mine was. So if you look right there, that's like where the plate was that had the thumb ring. So both of them had non-adjustable, just kind of plates that were here, and then just a soldered on ring right there. So I had them both removed. They weren't a huge problem for me. It's not like they were super uncomfortable, but I did have a really big callus on my thumb from this one for like for 5 or 6 years until I got it taken off. I don't remember when I got it taken off. But basically, I had a huge callus, and not super big. It wasn't like for my health I needed to get it taken off, but I didn't think it was necessary, and so I took it off, and I like it better. I've had a teacher, when I was in grad school with Rex Martin, he told me that I need to get them put back on. I didn't, and I don't really regret it. I never gave his idea a shot, but he said that I really need to have it there to anchor off of it. And obviously he was my teacher. I think that he's a great teacher, and I just never did it. So I can't, he might be right, and maybe I'm the fool. But I never got them put back on, and I don't really plan on it, but I still have them if I ever decide to, and it would cover up this nonsense. Let's see. I applied to UNT. Are you the tuba teacher along with Donald Little? I've heard that he's the main professor of tuba there. So the way that it works, and so to answer your question, no, I'm not a professor at UNT. I was a teaching fellow for 3 years. Like before the start of this school year, the last 3 years, I was one of the teaching fellows. And so the way that it works is Don Little is the tuba professor, and has been for 40 years. He's been there for a long time. And currently we have an adjunct. I don't know if that'll stay. That those things are subject to change. But then there's adjunct, and then there are teaching fellows. Usually he has 3. It fluctuates a little bit because there are half teaching fellows and full teaching fellows. So he could have 4 halves, or he could have 2 fulls, or 1 full and however many halves. So no, I'm not there anymore, but there are some other great teaching fellows that are there now. And by the time that you get there might be some different ones, but it's a great system because, especially if you're a performance major, you often study with the professor and one of the teaching fellows, which, I like to think that I was a pretty good teacher as a teaching fellow, and I think the other ones are as well. So you get kind of 2 perspectives. You get kind of a person who's been teaching for a really long time that knows so much. And then you get someone who's kind of in the thick of it, and, hey, what do I need to do to, try to get into this grad school? And, someone who just did it might be slightly more helpful. So to me, it's a really good balance of that sort of thing. So, but no, if you come to UNT, I won't be teaching you. But I do live currently a mile away from the campus, and that might change. So, but let's see. I am a sophomore and I'm trying out for all region. Any tips? Keep practicing slowly. Do your due diligence with practicing slowly. Don't feel like you need to compete with anybody. The only person you need to compete with is yourself. Just practice slowly and play the tempo that you can play well. And then the other thing I would say is just try to play with your best sound and play really musically. All pretty general things, but it's kind of my general advice. Cool. So if there aren't, you clicked on the title. Welcome back, Emiliano. I think it's been a few streams since you've been here. But yeah, I thought it was a funny enough title. Yeah, no problem, Alec. Are you applying to any other schools? Let's see. Why is the B flat tuba that everyone starts off with? Ooh, that's a question that requires me to put my tuba down. So, you were here last stream, but I think you missed some before that, but maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, I think the biggest reason is it's really, really simple to. Oh, you haven't missed any. Well, and it's really simple as a band director to stand in front of the band and, with everybody but the French horns, you can say E flat, first valve, or you don't even have to say it sometimes. You can just do this and everyone will see that and be like, oh, I played an E natural, or whatever the case may be. So I think that's a big component of it. It's just simplicity. There's no reason. You hear people say that C tubas are professional instruments and they're all expensive. And that's more of a supply and demand thing than it is anything else. There's no reason why a C tuba is more expensive than a B flat tuba from a purely manufacturing standpoint. It's actually less metal, but there are other reasons. If you don't make as many, things are always more expensive that way, and it's not what people want. Very few people are looking for a beginner C tuba, so one doesn't get made, and then no one can play a beginner C tuba because one's not made. So it's just kind of it's kind of one of those things where it's just kind of convention. It definitely is simpler, but there's no other really good reason, and I actually don't like that that's the case. But yeah, let's see. I'll let other people answer that question about all state, all region, all that stuff. I didn't grow up in Texas, so I don't really know how all of it works. I know some of it from a teaching perspective, but yeah, past that, I don't quite know. Let's see. All state competitions are later in the year. Where are you right now? Where am I right now? I live in Texas. Let's see. What city? Denton, Texas. You should do a master class at your school. Talk to your band director. I'd be happy to. Yeah, I think that was one of the etudes from a couple of years ago. You love number 9. 19 from... Oh, you love number 9 from the Blazevich. Yeah. What do I consider my main instrument? I kind of talked about this earlier. I consider my main instrument to be whatever instrument I'm holding in my hands. But a slightly more accurate answer is still kind of hard because I make more money playing trombone, but I have more advanced degrees in tuba. So yeah, it's kind of a hard answer or hard question to answer. But I don't really think about it that way. I'm a musician. I play the music that I'm playing, and I play the instrument that's in my hands. Relax, I'm turning red. I don't really turn red, but Stu-Man here. He was right at the beginning. I didn't really see him much since then. I'm not sure if he's still there. I'm doing all right. Thanks. The Fast in Grand Prairie. Yeah, that's not far away. Screensaver IG, kind of like when... I don't really know what that means. Which one is the A2 number 1 for Allstate? Is that the E flat major one? Play the A flat. No, I'm pretty done with playing the Allstate etudes. There's a video of me playing it on my channel that you can watch. But yeah, I mean, for that E flat major one, I think the big thing is those big slurs, right? Those like 10th slurs from the E flat to the G. That's something that can be difficult. So what I do with that interval specifically is I condense it to an octave. So I'll play E flat to G in the staff and then continue on, or I'll play E flat to G above the staff. So that's a big thing that I'll do to just kind of help get that to be better. And I'm really thinking about just moving my air and I use that E flat to propel me up to that G. But that's kind of some tips on that. Let's see. Did I ever march? No, I always answer that saying no. But I did play in the All-American College Band at Disneyland, which I played a sousaphone, and we marched or more danced around. But most people don't count that. But that's the only kind of marching that I've really done. Play Carnival of Venice. Played it the other day. I don't really want to right now. Play number 21, volume 1, Blazevich. Let me see which one that is. No guarantees. Do you know how to circular breathe? No, I do not. It would be kind of nice, potentially. But for the most part, circular breathing isn't really helpful on tuba. It can be helpful, but it's not necessary. I will play 21 because I like that one. Playing softer dynamics. So I do an exercise that I was taught to do this exercise by Rex Martin when I was getting my master's degree at Northwestern. And what he would have us do, he'd call it the most boring exercise in the world, and we'd all, like 10 or 12 of us, would do it together, and we would put on a metronome at quarter note equals 50, and basically it would be a B flat major scale 3 times per note, each note starting at fortissimo, going all the way down to niente or nothing. So you do that 3 times per each note. on a B flat major scale, going down all the way to pedal B flat was how we did it. And that, I'd been struggling to play soft before I did that. And then I did that every day for a week. And I feel like I've been a better soft player since I did it that 1 week. So that's how I've always worked on it. And that's kind of helped solve it for me. Do you know anything about Arkansas All-State Trombone Euphonium Tube Etudes? I have no idea about them. I could do them. It's just there are 50 states and most of them have their own all-state. Some of them they're more region-based, but it's hard to, I don't really want to spend all my time doing all of the etudes. Favorite etude ever is the 21. Yeah, it's a good etude. Bruce Broughton's not on his desk and he's going to look at it. Yeah, that's a great solo. But yeah, that's the exercise that I kind of like, because I always felt like I was lost in my soft playing until I did that. Usually clickbait should be giving away a Jupiter tuba. Yeah, I don't have giveaways of tuba money. I've done one giveaway before on Instagram. I think it mostly went well, but those were all like instrument accessories and things. The title of the live stream is very click. It is, but it's also like, I feel like because it's a joke, it makes it okay. But yeah, I'll play whatever is 21. Let's see. Probably faster than it needed to be, but let's see. How long did you practice the trombone etudes this year before final recording of it? That's kind of a hard question to answer because when the books came out, I was practicing a bunch of the etudes in the books, and that was one that I'd been working on pretty well. So once I knew it was an etude, I kind of already had it, kind of figured out. And I mean, that's an etude that, is not super, super hard for me. It probably didn't take me, too much time to work it up. But, there are levels to it. Can I play all the correct notes and correct rhythms? And that's important. But to me, that's not enough. I want to do more than just play it. I want to play it musically. I want to play it I want to make some informed decisions about it. But I'd known that etude before all of this too. So, but yeah, so kind of with all of them, that was kind of the case. The only ones I really didn't know were the tuba etudes, just because I have that book, but I haven't really worked out of it much. Like I didn't grow up working on it in lessons or anything, so I didn't really know those etudes. This etude came naturally to me. Yeah, it's a good etude. Is it possible for you to send me a PDF of the second volume of the Blazevich on Instagram? I generally don't do that. I think technically that is actually, is that not something you can find online? If it's not online, then it should be public domain, but some of that stuff can be weird, and especially since I don't understand all of the law of it, I tend to not be super interested in sharing things like that. I know that the likelihood of, tuba player shares PDF, goes to prison is very unlikely, but like to, keep my nose clean, so to speak. Let's see here. I'll play out of a different etude book. See. Also, if there are any other questions, keep them coming. How's it going, Logan? Hope you're doing all right. How's it going, U_5G? Is that a mouthpiece related 5G or is that just a 5G? How's it going, Lewis? Let's see, I was looking for an A-tune. I couldn't find what I was looking for. Let's see, I'll play this. Now you play a 6.5. Yeah, 6.5 is probably the most common mouthpiece for trombone / euphonium. Not quite so with professionals, but I think the most 6.5s probably exist in this world. Can you play the first etude from last year's All Region? I mean, that's not specific enough. I don't know what which one you're talking about. Get a PT 8850 or a Yamaha 27C. I mean, those are good mouthpieces. They're also talking about trombone or euphonium mouthpieces. Can I play second waltz? I'm not sure what that is. Do I know what that is? If so, I don't remember. Oh, you want me to play the Coproj 24? I played it the other day. I mean, it's not going to be as good as the recording that I did because I haven't practiced it since I did that recording. So you should just listen to that recording instead. How do I feel about Giddings mouthpieces for tuba? I used to own one. I liked it. I just, when I got my F tuba, I was using it on a different F tuba, and my F tuba has a different receiver size, so it didn't work. But yeah, they make good stuff. I like the idea that the plating can't wear. I think they resonate differently than brass mouthpieces, but not necessarily in a bad way. I think it's just different, which makes sense because it is a different metal. The Bach 2G slaps. Yeah, I don't have a Bach 2G. But I did, if anyone is curious of my mouthpiece collection, I did a video and put it on YouTube. I assume a lot of you have seen it since a lot of you are all about the notifications. But yeah, I did, these are all like my small tenor mouthpieces, and I've got some other ones down there. But yeah, I did a video about all the mouthpieces that I play. Can you play euphonium? If yes, do you have one right now? Yep, I have one. Probably should not only play tuba on these streams. Let's see. Do you do lessons? If so, how much per lesson? So I generally do hour lessons that often go over, but I charge $60 per hour. If you want to set up a lesson, you can message me on Instagram, or you can email me, zachmarleymusic@gmail.com. So those are the two easiest ways to get a hold of me. Let's see. What would you say is the best mouthpiece for tuba? I really just don't think that's how it works. You know, I mean, I really like my 1XL on my C tuba, and I like playing my 2L on F tuba, but I wouldn't necessarily want to only have one of those mouthpieces either. Not that I could. It's one of those things where a professional can get by with using, you know, one mouthpiece for a bunch of different things. It doesn't make it optimal, but it could be done. And you know, like I don't need a certain mouthpiece. Like my wife is also a trombonist, and I put in my contrabass trombone mouthpiece to my euphonium, and I asked her to guess the mouthpiece, and she guessed my normal size of euphonium mouthpiece. So it's not like you need one thing over another, but I really like my Dennis Wick mouthpieces. I mean, I'm endorsed by them, so someone is going to say that they're paying for that. But at the end of the day, I've been playing Dennis Wick. I got my first Dennis Wick mouthpiece when I was a sophomore in high school. So I've had them for a long time. Not all of them, but I've had a lot of Dennis Wick mouthpieces for a long time, and I really like them. So my general recommendation for someone on tuba is the Dennis Wick 2XL. And I have one of those, and I really like it, and I think it works well for most people. But mouthpieces are so personal. I can't tell you what the best mouthpiece for you is, because it also has to do with what tuba you have, and what how you play. So let's see. Wait, I lost it. What brought you to getting the Mel Culbertson Model C? My teacher had it. He had another tuba that he played as his primary instrument, and then he had this one as well. And so I was a freshman in high school, and I'd known about the instrument since being a sixth grader, because I'd played on it a few times. So basically, I didn't really know anything, and then my teacher was like, "Hey, do you want to buy this tuba? I'll sell it to you for cheap." And then I was able to get it for a really good deal. I really call it a gift, to be honest, because he charged me so little that I don't think it's never really been market value what I paid for it. So that's what brought me to the Mel Culbertson, is because it was basically a gift. So PT80 is the best mouthpiece for tuba. Sure, some people think so. I don't think it's a bad thing, but let's see. Can you play flute? Nope. I can make a sound on flute sometimes, but let's see. Do you use a tuba mouthpiece for contrabass trombone? Most people don't. Most people use something that's generally bigger than a bass trombone mouthpiece, and smaller than a tuba mouthpiece, but probably closer to a contrabass trombone or closer to a bass trombone than tuba mouthpiece. I don't own a contra, so I'm not going to sit here and say that this is the best contra mouthpiece. This is what everybody should be using. I just have it to try out instruments, and and so I have a Dennis Wick 00, which isn't, you maybe could go bigger for contra than this even, but it definitely feels too big for bass trombone, in my opinion. So that's what I have. And you can see it doesn't look massive. This is a 3, my euphonium mouthpiece. I mean, they're very similar in size. How much is my whole mouthpiece? I have no idea how much it's worth. I honestly haven't. I don't buy a lot of mouthpieces new. I used to buy them used all the time. In fact, my first teacher, I remember the day that I got this mouthpiece. This is a Schilke 67, gold plated. Obviously, the gold plating is a little worse for wear. But I got this when I was in 6th or 7th grade. And he was like, do you want this mouthpiece? I think you need a better mouthpiece. I'll sell it to you for $30. And so, cut a couple lawns and I got a gold plated mouthpiece, basically. So, I bought a lot of stuff used. I think a gold plated Schilke 67 has gone up in price probably since I got this, and it was used at the time. But the other thing too, gold plating has gone up like crazy in the last 15, 20 years. So a gold-plated mouthpiece used to be might as well. It's not that much more expensive. To now, it's like, do you really need that? So that's a little bit of it. But I think I did a full count, and I have 33 mouthpieces. Some of those are under 100, but probably most of them are more than $100. Like Dennis Wick and Bach trombone mouthpieces are under 100, but a lot of them are around 100, so they probably average just slightly more than 100. So what, maybe $3-4 grand, something around there. If they're all new. What's a good euphonium mouthpiece to help you play higher? I really don't like that question. I don't like thinking that way. The best way to get better at playing in the high range is fixing the U problem, not fixing the equipment problem. In general, most people find more success in a smaller mouthpiece than a larger mouthpiece for high range, but that's not necessarily, I know I have I just talked about having 33 mouthpieces, and yes, I I like playing the ones I like to play, but I could put in a random mouthpiece and I could still play the instrument well, and that's what you want to be able to do. Yeah, faster air is all that it is, but it doesn't always work. Yeah, I mean, you have to figure out how to use your air. It's not quite. I mean, that's definitely a thing that a lot of teachers say it. I say it too. But at the end of the day, you have to figure out how your air works, and what your teacher is telling you at the end of the day is probably just it's ways of tricking your brain into doing things. A lot of times I tell students things that aren't 100% true because it's how I want them to think about it. What's my primary instrument? So I get that a lot. I'm going to make an overlay for this at some point, and I'm probably going to put something to the effect of my main instrument is the one in my hands, because that's how I always answer that question. So right now, euphonium is my main instrument because it's in my hands right now. If I pick this up, now it's bass trombone, and it's tuba. It was tuba earlier. That's kind of how I think about it, because I don't think it's that clear cut for me. And there are other people who play multiple instruments that I think that that's the way to think about it. What's my least favorite mouthpiece? To be honest, I don't really like spending a ton of money on a mouthpiece. I don't know if that's quite an answer, but if you look through my collection, I mean, yes, there's some of them are gold plated, and that obviously raises the price. But I think that my most expensive mouthpiece probably is just like a Dennis Wick that's one of the heritage ones. Those are, not especially because I only have those for trombone, but I probably don't have, I guess I'm not sure how much like a gold plated Dennis Wick tuba mouthpiece goes. It's the classic series. It might be more than the heritage. But I don't think I have any mouthpieces at over $150. So that's kind of, I don't really like spending a ton on a mouthpiece. It's cool to have an expensive mouthpiece. Actually, I think the most expensive mouthpiece in here isn't mine, which is a Pickett 7. But that's something that I kind of, I think there are really good mouthpieces that aren't very expensive. That's not to say that the best, the most expensive mouthpieces are bad, because I don't think so. But I just think that there's so many students who see, oh, this is a $300 mouthpiece, it must be good. And it's probably good, but $300 is a lot more than $70, which you can get a really good mouthpiece for $70. And especially I know people who are really strapped for cash and feel like they need a $300 mouthpiece, and they don't. So that's a little bit of how I think about it. Let's see. I think the E-flat Marcia is your favorite etude. It's kind of fun. Yeah, it's a good one. Least played mouthpiece. Probably the least played mouthpiece is one of like the unmarked ones. Because I've gotten some that just like came with an instrument. One of them I know came with a friend of mine borrowed a bass trombone mouthpiece from me, and at that time I only had one bass trombone mouthpiece. And he borrowed it for an audition, so he had it for a while. And I was like, hey, well, I need something. And so he gave me the mouthpiece that came with his Yamaha bass trombone. And then I never ended up giving it back. I think he didn't want it back because it was just a stock mouthpiece. Or maybe that's not even where that came. I don't know. Some unnamed mouthpiece that I have that, but what do you listen for in your low register on tuba? Is there any good pieces you recommend listening for examples? I think that there's a lot of good stuff on like Gene Pokorny's Excerpt album. He's got a really great low range, and it's kind of hard to find isolated examples of tuba. So I think that Excerpt album can be really helpful. To be honest, I listened to that all the time when I was in high school. I used to literally fall asleep listening to that album, which is probably a personality problem. But I think that I learned a lot about sound because of doing that. And so yeah, and because the other thing too, it's hard to find tuba players playing contrabass tuba in an isolated context. So that's the one thing that I would kind of lean towards that I think is good. When playing a high B flat on my trombone, it rattles between the A flat and B flat. It's so frustrating. Yeah, sometimes there could be a soldering that's not there, that's come undone. I have a soldering that's undone that I need to do, but it's soldered enough through here that you can't really notice it. But soldering's come undone. It just happens. You might have to take it to someone. I think just sustaining that A flat and then the B flat and try to get better air control. Or are you saying that you can't keep that pitch straight? I'm not exactly sure. Can you spell that name? I don't know what you mean. How's it going, Jose? Someone asked for some euphonium a while ago, and I didn't do it. Oh, Gene Picorni, gotcha. Gene, normal spelling, I guess, Gene, and then Picorni, Porkony, I believe. I should know that, but I'm pretty sure. But now you're putting me on the spot. But yeah, he plays in the Chicago Symphony and has since the 80s. He's a great tuba player. But he's got an excerpt album where he talks about each excerpt and plays it. And to me, that's it's really hard to find quality tuba that is isolated that happens to be a big tuba. So that's what I would go towards. Do you have any tips for tuning the low register on tuba? Yeah, so what I do is I test my low range fingerings up the octaves. So let's take a note like I'll say the B flat tuba fingerings just because that'll probably be easier for most people, but I'll play my C tuba notes. So let's take like an E flat. So I'll test those low range fingerings with up the octave. And what that basically just proved was that theoretically, if that sounds the same where it's first valve or 5 and 4, that it should be perfectly in tune at the low range. The reality of it is the human tendency is also to get sharper in the low range. So you might have to do a little bit of experimentation to figure that out. But that's how I start out finding my low range fingerings because it changes over time. It's pretty stable for me at this point, but that's not, that takes some time. So, I would also go for tone. If your tone is good down there, you can figure out the tuning from that, I think. Let's see. Sounds like a tremolo. Yeah, it sounds like I can't remember exactly what you said. Oh, so I think what you're describing, it's a little bit hard sometimes from a text message or from text, but let me. Let's see here. I assume that's what you mean, that the A flat is coming out. And that's because A flat, a lowered, like a flat A flat can be played in first position. So if your air isn't perfectly in your ear, more importantly, if your ear isn't really dialed into that B flat, you might get that A flat to come out. You've noticed that your low range is a bit sharp. Yeah, you're not the only one. I would say that's the overwhelming majority of us, and I include myself in that. If I'm doing a lot of low stuff, I'll probably pull out a slide, and it probably won't hurt me. I'll put it that way. Like a lot of times on my F or my C tuba, I'll pull the fourth valve slide a good bit, and that just kind of helps settle some things. I maybe could do without it, but yeah. How to always play perfectly in the low and high range. Yeah, I mean that's definitely a clickbait thing because it's not that simple. But I really want to stay away from clickbait sort of stuff. But I mean that's also the platform, right? It sounds like a motor. Yeah, it seems like you're probably just right in between the two notes and not really playing one or the other. So I said I'd play some euphonium, and I'm gonna do it. Let's see here. What's your channel? What do you mean? Like low brass U? what is a complex solo for euphonium? Oh, there's so many. My solo literature on euphonium, I mean, complex is an interesting word, but Philip Sparks written a lot of really difficult solos for euphonium. Kevin Day wrote a really hard piece for euphonium. Maybe that's what you're looking for. What are some exercises for shifting in the pedal register on tuba? Again, I play a lot of scales down there, and I think that's really kind of what, for me, what's helped me a lot is just playing scales through there and not really thinking about it. For a lot of what I do, my hope is to not have to think about what I'm doing. So yeah, that's kind of what I do is I just play a lot of low scales. I do it pretty much every day, and that kind of helps because if you are shifting, there's a point where you're going to shift every single time. So I don't really think about a shift. I'm not going to say I don't shift because I'm sure I do. I don't think, okay, I'm playing this note, let me do this. That's not how my brain works for playing a brass instrument. But there are tons of people who do that and sound great. So where's the merch? One day. I've been looking into it. It just seems so complicated. I looked into like some print on demand things where like I would never even like touch your shirt. It would be, I'd have these designs, and then as soon as you bought one, a company would print it and ship it to you. But it seems like the margins on those would be pretty terrible. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe at some point. Am I familiar with Ben Patterson? Yep, I don't know him personally, but I know who he is. Great bass trombone player. Plays an airman a note. Oh, I thought you had your own channel. I don't know what you mean. Easy solos. There are a lot of collections of solos that are pretty easy. That's usually what I look for easy solos is, these books that have 10 or 15 solos in them. What exercises do you recommend for improving dexterity and tone quality, both high and low register on tuba? Yeah, so I think that a lot of that it really just has to be practiced slowly, because what essentially needs to happen for you to jump ranges well is you have to make certain changes really quickly. And to make those changes really quickly, you have to first kind of understand what those changes are. And I'm not saying that you need to think about the shift or anything, but your body has to figure it out. I always use the example of like a famous athlete pick any sport. I always go to Steph Curry because I think it's such an easy comparison. Steph Curry is an amazing 3-point shooter, and I don't think he thinks about what his wrist is doing. But he can shoot the ball so well, so he must know what his wrist's doing. But that's kind of how I go about it, is that I just try to figure out these things, especially working on some really crazy tuba piece or something. I'll just practice it slowly, condense it. That's another thing, is I'll condense things into one octave so it's in my ear, play it on the piano, those sorts of things. What are my thoughts on Blastissimo? It's not great if you want to be employed for playing a low brass instrument. Have I been to iTech? Yes, I've been to iTech multiple times. Not sure how many at this point. Been a lot of the regional ones as well. But yeah, let's see. Personal question. How do you go between switching from tuba, euphonium, and trombone? I have issues going between them. Yeah, it took a lot of time. And I wouldn't say that I'm perfect at it. It's like if you wanted me to play the world's hardest trombone solo, and then the next second play the world's hardest tuba solo, and then play the world's hardest bass trombone solo, and then the hardest euphonium solo, and the hardest alto trombone solo. I probably wouldn't play them as well as if I, wasn't doing it crazy like that. But to me, I think the answer to your question for me is I worry about one thing, and that one thing is the sound. So if I pick up the bass trombone, all I kind of think about in my head is, I want to sound like insert famous bass trombone player that sounds amazing. Pick your favorite person, or some combination or something like that. So you might say, I want to sound like James Markey when you pick up the bass trombone. You might pick up a C tuba and say, okay, I want to sound just like Gene Precornia, or I want to sound just like Mike Roylance, or again, insert your favorite person in all of these sorts of scenarios. But I purely go to just trying to play with that sound that I have in mind, because I think that's the big difference. And if I do that, I feel like my body will do everything else correctly. So that's kind of how I think about things. That's a very not obscure, but abstract answer. But that's kind of how I go about it, and it's mostly worked for me. But again, it's like, I'm not every day am I switching back and forth a lot, especially not in a professional context. Like usually it's, I'll do my normal practicing, I'll play whatever instruments I need to play that day, or I choose to play that day, which is most of the time. But then I'll go to a gig and I'll only play tuba, or I'll only play trombone, or only play bass trombone. And so most of my day is kind of, it's at least towards the end before a gig, or before a rehearsal or something, anything like that, I'm going to start playing that instrument more and kind of, I'm kind of going to go for that. And so in the real world, I don't have to do it that much. I just have to be able to play each instrument when someone requests it. But how's my time at UNT? Overall, really good. No school is perfect, but UNT has a lot of perks that a lot of other schools don't have. It's a really big school that helps for certain things. But yeah, overall, a good time. I did my undergrad there and I came back for my doctorate. So that should tell you that I at least didn't hate it. Why did you go with the Mac brass on euphonium? I didn't want to spend $8,000 on a Wilson or a Besson. That's kind of the biggest reason. I knew that I wanted, and basically you don't need anything but food and water, and shelter. But I knew that I needed a compensating euphonium, and I wanted it to be silver plated, and I didn't want to spend a ton of money. So that's about, there are only so many options. So that's kind of a little bit of why I chose it, I guess. How's it going, Breadstick Fanatic? Welcome back. No problem, Parker. You should try playing a song from Lucky Chops. Yeah, their stuff's cool. I haven't really, listened to them time and time again, but I know their current tuba player, Reggie. But yeah, James Markey is amazing. Does the tuba have a good part in Lucky Chops? Yeah, they do a lot of cool stuff. I thought it was just eighth note Cs. Yeah, I don't know that one, but any tips for euphonium TMEA? Especially for the C major one, practice it slowly. The C minor one, condense things so they're, you're not doing crazy range jumps while you're practicing, and then figure it out. Get it in your ear first, then try to go to how it's written. And the other one, a lot of slow practice, the E minor one. Let's see. If you're involved in the music education scene, do you think the music education is on the decline, pandering to audience/students, etc.? I'm not a band director, if that's what you're asking. But mainly thinking middle school, high school scene. But if you know anything about the university scene, that's cool too. I'm definitely more on the university side of things. I don't have a full-time professor job, but I'm an adjunct professor at a school in Oklahoma, and I've taught courses as being a teaching fellow. So I don't know if I'd say it's on the decline. There's so many people that are doing it. Band programs are huge these days. Part of that is living in Texas that's what I see. But I think overall, I wouldn't say that we're in a panic situation or anything. I think a little bit that things could be a little, in general in education, so much of it is teaching towards the test. And I think that's not necessarily a great strategy. I encourage my students not to just exclusively practice all-state music, and I don't think that they hear that enough. Thoughts on Deanna Swoboda? I don't know her personally. I've only heard positive things of her as a person and as a teacher, and I've heard her play some, and she's really good. I don't have anything more specific than that. I don't know where any of the skeletons are buried or anything like that, but I've mostly only heard good things. So if you're considering studying with her, I don't have a reason to say you shouldn't do that. Any tips for euphonium? I assume you just asked that again, so I'd get to it. I said I'd play some euphonium, and I didn't. But I'm not going to play the all-state music. Today I did my last master class for all-state stuff, and I think I've earned being done with them. I feel like I did my part by recording all of them. I recorded 30 all-state etudes. I think most people don't realize how many I did because they only need 2 or 3 of them. But I recorded 30 of those etudes. I edited 30 of those videos. It took me a lot of time. Let's see. If tenor trombonists tend to practice high stuff, bass trombone tend to practice low stuff, do you find bass tubas tend to practice high stuff and contrabass tend to practice low? Not necessarily. I think the thing to realize with that situation, and I don't encourage bass trombone players to only play low, or tenor trombone players only play high, because at this point in time, there are bass trombone concertos that go up to C's above the staff. There are tenor trombone concertos that go down to pedal C, like the lowest note on the instrument before false tones. So I kind of think about it as if it's a note that you can play and you might have to play, you need to work on it. And I think the thing with bass tubas and contrabass tubas that makes it different than your comparison to tenor and bass trombone is that there aren't, contrabass. You can't get a degree in contrabass tuba. You can't get a degree in bass tuba. You get a degree in tuba, and you're kind of expected to play both if you're, studying performance and, planning on like playing in an orchestra or something like that. But at the end of the day, you might not have both. And, there are pieces where you might have to play really high on C tuba, and there are pieces that you might have to play really low on F tuba. So that I think that's a big thing. Let's see. Know anything about the tuba euphonium studio at Texas Tech? I've had lunch with Dr. Wass once, and I've interacted with him in a few situations, and I've heard him play. And I know a lot of people who studied with him, and I think, based off of what I've heard, I think that he's a really good teacher. But I've never taken a lesson with him. Tenor trombonist here, considering switching and adding bass bone, any recommendation? I would say that when you're playing bass trombone, you think of yourself as a bass trombone player. That's the biggest thing. And I will say that cheap bass trombones often aren't as good as nice bass trombones, and bass trombones can be expensive. So did I post the euphonium etudes? Yep, I posted the euphonium etudes. For assuming you're asking for Texas, since you were asking about Texas earlier. Yeah, I did every single low brass etude for both ATSSB and TMEA, except for I didn't do the all-state jazz etudes for ATSSB, but I did them for TMEA. Are you just going to ask me about every person, just hoping that I'll say something negative, or hoping that I'll? I mean, again, I don't know Matt Stripes personally, but I've heard mostly good things. I don't know what to tell you. ATSSB is the smaller schools. But yeah, I'm gonna do a little bit of playing. I get you. Yeah, I mean, yeah, most of those people are people that I don't really know that well. When choosing a school, there are just so many factors, and you're asking mostly about the professors. The professors aren't the only things to worry about. You have a great professor at a school, and the rest of the school is terrible, or is in the middle of nowhere, and you don't want to do that. One of the biggest reasons why I went to Northwestern is because it's outside of Chicago. I lived in Chicago, and that was really nice to be that close to a big city with big city things. My second choice for grad school was Baylor in Waco, Texas. I didn't really want to live in Waco. No offense to anybody who lives in Waco, but I'd rather live in Chicago than in Waco. So I did. Those weren't the only concerns, but it wasn't like I was just choosing between Rex Martin, being at Northwestern. I wasn't just choosing between professors. I don't think it should be that simple, because I had a lot of lessons with Kent Eshelman at Baylor, and they were great. I learned a lot. I wanted to study with him. I'm not saying that like I should have gone there or shouldn't have gone there, but I really liked my lessons with him. And, I actually plan on maybe taking some other lessons from him at some point, because he's just a really great teacher and great player. But I ultimately chose a different school, and it wasn't because of him. It was, I had to make what I thought was the best decision for a whole list of factors. Favorite excerpts? Meister Singer, probably on tuba, is my favorite. What are your thoughts on rotary versus piston? They're both good. They're different. To me, it's like there's so many comparisons of like if you're into computers, someone who's like Intel over AMD, it's or Intel or AMD over NVIDIA or things like that. Like yeah, they're, people are going to have their opinions. They're good at different things. So what do people tend to work on in jazz-oriented lessons? There seems to be a lot of established rep that classical musicians can work on, like excerpts, rochus, etc., but not as much with jazz. Again, it depends on each, it depends on each person, what their, what they want to teach you or what you want to learn. Those are two factors. And most of the jazz lessons that I took, I guess I'll list off a bunch of things that I did in jazz lessons over the years. These are different teachers. These are different scenarios. Some high school, some college, some outside of school. I did, some of it was learning some of the jazz theory things that are helpful to know. You don't need to know everything about jazz theory, but that can be helpful and give you new ideas. I did a lot of transcribing. So come in, learn this transcription by insert trombone player here, insert musician here. It doesn't have to be a trombone player. Sometimes it was playing some jazz etudes. I would say that's a pretty small portion of it. But a lot of it is, hey, go learn these two tunes and be able to play them, and we'll play it together. That's a big thing that a lot of lessons are. So it's not the same system, but there are a lot of similar things. And even excerpts come up too. Let's say that you're auditioning for a military jazz band. There are pretty, somewhat standardized big band tunes and things like that. So, but I also think you have to work on sound and pitch and all of those other things that you work on, time, rhythm. Those are you still have to work on those things in jazz. People don't think about them as much when they're thinking about those sorts of things. But if you want to play jazz, you have to sound good. People have to want to hear you. You have to play in time. So those things matter just as much. We just, again, we're not working on the same repertoire. Jupiter tubas with pistons on the front are pretty cool. I've played a couple of those. Not going to dab today. No vesting. It's too hot for the vest right now. I'm not like sweating, but I guess I'm sweating a little bit, but I definitely don't want a vest on. Do I have perfect pitch? No. I have a really good relative pitch, which I'm content with. Have I ever composed? Yeah, I've composed some stuff. Maybe I can call myself a composer, but I don't feel like I do it frequently enough to really deserve that title. And there are people who that's their life. But I've written some things, mostly kind of in the jazz idiom, that sort of stuff. But yeah, I'm gonna do a little bit of playing. But you can keep the questions coming. I'll get to them. Let's see. Isn't relative pitch learnable? Yeah, and some people even say that perfect pitch is something that you can learn. I think in general, the younger that you are, the easier those things are to pick up on. Just your brain is more like a sponge the younger you are. So I think that really helps me because I started playing piano when I was 4. But yeah, you can always improve your ear, and perfect pitch. Perfect pitch is a really nice news story, who was that famous pop musician that people wouldn't leave him alone about having perfect pitch? I can't remember. But yeah, it's a really cool thing, and it can be helpful as a professional musician. There are times where it's helpful. But when you practice your instrument for long enough, I can sing F. Do I have perfect pitch? No. Do I know where an F is? Probably almost at any point in time. Yeah, I think so. Could I wake up in the middle of the night and sing an F? I would say that's more up in the air, like if I haven't played it all that day. But I used to test myself and wake up and just pick a note. I'd look at my instrument, pick a note, sing it, and see if I was right. And a lot of times I was. But if you don't have perfect pitch, it's possible that you're going to be wrong. But relative pitch is just fine. Let's see. Yeah, with enough, or wait, let me go back up. How was my day? My day was good. No problem. There's no requirement to get on the stream right when it starts. I don't mind, but how much longer do you plan on streaming today? We're getting close to 2 hours, probably not too much longer, but I'm not, they're good questions. I don't mind. Some jazz euphonium. There you go. I haven't practiced jazz euphonium in a while. Mars. Yeah, Mars is good. I'm not going to play I guess I could play the excerpt from Mars, but let's see. Have you ever played tuba in a jazz setting besides Dixieland, doing something similar stuff to a walking bass? Most of it's kind of Dixieland or trad, traditional, that sort of stuff. I'm definitely not playing a tuba gig where I'm a walking bass line for like, super progressive jazz stuff or something like that. But yeah, I do that when asked and when someone pays me to, but it's not something that I focus on a ton. I should probably do more of it. Let's see here. I've had problems with these valves in a long time until like the last couple of weeks. My second valve will not come up regularly. So maybe I need to take it into a shop. What do you recommend to do when the school sousaphone sounds like a dead rat? I don't really know what that means. I try to make my best sound on whatever instrument I'm playing. I've never really seriously played a woodwind instrument. My dad played saxophone, so I had access to one when I was a kid. It was, it was cool, I guess. I never really learned how to play it. I could play like a couple scales. Any thoughts on euphoniums versus baritones? I hear that people mix them up all the time. I'm curious your thoughts on the difference. Yeah, there are a lot of good videos on YouTube. Like Aaron Campbell did, or I think it is. I can't remember if it's Aaron Campbell on YouTube or maybe it's just AKC Youth. But he did a good video about it. The simple answer between the euphonium and baritones, the big thing that makes them different is one is more conical and one is more cylindrical. Euphonium is more conical and the baritone is more cylindrical. So the trombone is an example of an instrument that's very cylindrical, like cylinder. You can see that this looks like a cylinder, right? It's basically the same size for a really long time. Obviously, eventually it does flare, which this is conical. The bell is conical, but a lot of it is cylindrical. A lot of the tubing is roughly the same size. Whereas you look at a tuba, which is conical, it's getting bigger, almost all the time past the valve section. Wraps around a bunch of times. It's always getting bigger, which is more like a cone. So, baritones and euphoniums are very similar, but they're slightly different as far as that. And then also just kind of with that, since the euphonium is getting bigger most of the time, it's more likely to have a larger bell, and the baritone's less likely to have a larger bell. And then valve-wise, there's nothing that says a baritone can't have 4 valves. There are baritones with 4 valves that are compensating. That happens all the time. You don't see them as much because practically you don't need one as often, because especially like in a brass band where the baritone is very prominent, is basically it's more of an extension of the trumpets than it is, an extension of the tubas so the euphonium is more on that side. So they have a different sound. That's ultimately what it is, because of being more cylindrical or more conical. They have a different sound. But anyone who tells you that that's a euphonium because it has 4 valves, or professionals only play euphoniums, it's not quite that simple. More euphoniums have 4 valves than baritones, probably just in the world, but there's no reason for that other than logistically. And more in America, we think about euphonium maybe being a professional instrument because that's what's in military bands and things, but that's not really accurate. So the short answer is the difference is the euphonium is conical, the baritone is more cylindrical. That's like the shortest answer that I can give. Any tips for high range on B flat tuba? A lot of high range stuff is just doing it consistently and trying to extend your middle range. That's what I'm always thinking about, is trying to just make my middle range bigger, and encompass my low range and my high range. But I do a lot of scales, a lot of arpeggios, things like that, lip slurs, all that sort of stuff. Alto horns are cooler than baritone or tenor horn. All right. Pretty subjective. Let's see here. Yeah, I think I'm about to be done. If you have any more final questions, maybe I'll play Ride of the Valkyries while we're getting our final questions in. Let's see, we'll read these final questions before I get off of here. So you basically have as much time as it takes for me to answer all these questions. What would you be doing if I didn't choose a path in music? I was really into math as a high school student, so maybe that's a possibility. Obviously I haven't taken a math class since high school, but I really like computers too, and I kind of always have. So maybe something in the IT field. And I still do some computer stuff. I help my mom out with her business. I'm doing some computer stuff here and there. So let's see. Two Man was on here for a bit, but I don't know about Colin. Have you ever won a major orchestra job? Nope. Most people who've won a major orchestra job are playing in a major orchestra. And if they're not, they're probably retired. So there are obviously examples that that's not true, but no, I've done well in auditions. I've advanced to semifinals for major jobs, but I've not made finals for a major job. I've made finals in other things, but for major orchestra jobs, I've made semifinals, which is good, but didn't win. Ever heard of the bass tuba concerto by Ralph Vaughan Williams? Yep, played it many times. That's the most common tuba concerto. It's kind of our big one. It's on a lot of orchestral audition lists. You have to play the first movement and sometimes even the second movement. But yeah, I couldn't even tell you how many times I've ever performed that piece. And I'm sure I'll play it again. Can you play the TMEA tuba etudes? If you look at my channel, I have them posted on YouTube. So they're all there. What if I already what if they're already tuba and euphonium? Oh, there you go. Yeah, all those etudes are there. For Valkyries, do you use it? I single tongue everything, Zach. For not everything, but in Ride of the Valkyries, I single tongue everything. So ta 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 ta. What's my name? Zach Marley. Yeah, it's not a secret. If you go to like some of my actual videos, it even pops up on the screen. And my channel was Zach Marley for a long time, so it's definitely not a secret. If it is a secret, I'm doing a very bad job of hiding it. Let's see. What advice would you give to a young tuba player and low brass player as an advanced player? Slow practice and really relaxed practice is the best thing, and being consistent with it. Doesn't matter where you're at today. It just matters about, getting better. Let's see. Yep, we do have the same name, and we both spell it the same way, which is not to say that any of the other spellings are wrong, but how many presidents of the United States spelled their name Z-A-C-K? So there's that. Yes, I am married. I didn't know your name was Marley. Yep, except for you spelled it wrong. It's got an E. It's just like Bob Marley. Zach is a hype name. Yeah, I didn't really choose the name. Am I a gamer? Not really. The last console I bought was a PlayStation 2. It hasn't worked in 10 years. I have a reasonably powerful computer for video editing, although it's been frustrating me as of lately. But I can play some games. I used to have games on there. The game that I played the most on my computer was Star Wars Battlefront, like the first EA one, which a lot of people hated, but I played that a lot. But I've deleted all the games off my computer just to try to stay more productive. Where am I from? I'm from Louisville, Kentucky originally. What is my favorite key of tuba? Probably C if I only had to have one, but I think the fun is having multiple, and eventually I'd like to have all of them. Best key signature to play in? Depends on the key of the instrument. I think the one that just is the friendliest is like E flat on B flat tuba or a B flat instrument, because you're always using first valve. You're rarely using second valve alone, and that's kind of just a friendly thing. Can you do a video with the chimbasso? So I actually don't own a chimbasso. You shouldn't believe everything that you see on the internet. I don't own a chimbasso. I'd like to do some videos with one eventually. I don't think that me buying a chimbasso is in the cards anytime soon. But yeah, I'd love to own a chimbasso. There's a Swiss-made company that makes a really nice one that's like 18 grand. So if you guys if all 20 of you want to message them and tell them that I should do a video and they should just give me the chimbasso, that works for me. What's the best method for getting a CC tuba, since they're usually 10 grand on average? I buy used. Used can be scary. Bad things can happen. People can do nefarious things. But for the most part, the tuba community is small knit or close knit, and most of the time people aren't doing bad things, and most of the time it's going to be okay. So that's what I would do. Use that working money and buy. Yeah, I don't think you guys realize that there are also other expenses other than just buying brass instruments. Believe me, if I could spend all my money on brass instruments and just like live in my car, I probably would. But that doesn't really work. I need to eat. Insurance is a thing. There are lots of things. So, but yeah, eventually I'd like to get a chimbasso. I just, spending 18 grand on one seems kind of silly at this point in my life. But, it might happen. Would you like to try both the Titanic tuba and the subcontrabass tuba? Yeah, I mean, I'd like to try one. Those definitely, to me, aren't worth buying other than I would have to have a huge house to even consider getting one of those. But, I mean, also, you can't just buy one of those. Do we do fan mail? Like physical mail? I'm definitely not going to give out my address. I've thought about getting a PO box, but you were the first person to ask about it. If more people are interested in that, I could set up a PO box, but as of right now, no. How do you get a mouthpiece stuck out of euphonium? I would take it to someone. You can do some damage if you're not careful, but a little bit of heat could help. If you have a hair dryer or a heat gun, that might be able to help get it unstuck, but you have to wear gloves and things. But yeah, I would just take it to someone. You can do damage to your instrument if you're not careful. They do make these mouthpiece pullers, but I would just take it to someone. They probably won't charge you to pull a mouthpiece. Do you play trumpet? I played a little bit. I'm definitely not a professional trumpet player by any stretch. Food is just a suggestion. Starving isn't real. It's all about state of mind. Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's true. I'm weak-minded. I feel like I need food for some reason to live. But yeah, I mean, I have a long list of instruments that I'd like to buy, but the reality of it is, I also think a lot about return on investment. I mean, a lot of these instruments have been really expensive, but at the end of the day, they make money back, so they were a good investment. Like this bass trombone. I bought this bass trombone because when I was in college, I kept getting asked to play bass trombone gigs, and I didn't have one. I kept having to turn them down. I bought it. It was an investment, and I've made more money on this bass trombone than it costs. So that, to me, that was worthwhile. Obviously, it'd be good to have more, more than just breaking even on an instrument, which pretty much all my instruments have, other than the alto trombone. But that's kind of, a cimbasso can make its money back, but that's really only if you play in a professional opera orchestra. And a lot of those own their own cimbassos. So if you practice enough, you'll be full. It's the truth. I guess I'll have to try. I guess I've not practiced enough. That's what we've learned here today. F sharp key, yeah, it can be gross. But there really aren't bad keys. They're just unfamiliar keys. Welcome to your first stream, Game Time 47. Is it? See, I can see it now that it looks like the Red Lobster logo, but I couldn't see that. For tuba, do you prefer front action valves or standard? Front action, because if they're top action, you can't really pull slides. Let's see. I saw you in a video of Drew's Rimba's arrangement of As. Any thoughts on Drew or that recording session? Yeah, that was a fun session. Yeah, I've done some recording stuff with Drew. Went to school with Drew. He's a great writer, great saxophone player, great piano player. He can kind of do everything. But yeah, the recording, Drew also has the ability to get a lot of really great players on a recording session. So one of the nice things about playing for him usually is that it's, I'm playing with a bunch of people who are better than me, which is what I always hope to do. Who did you vote for? I won't tell you that, but I will tell you that I did vote, because voting is important. And some of you I'm sure can vote, and some of you probably can't vote. But when you can vote, you should vote. Surprisingly, you didn't make back the money with the alto trombone. I mean, to be honest, I've had one gig on alto trombone. And that alto trombone is about $2,000. I can't remember what that gig paid, but not $2,000. I mean, people make their money back on alto trombone. But yeah, I have thought about picking up an alto trombone, and then I did. So here's the alto trombone. Play a little bit of it. Haven't played alto trombone in a few days. Let's see. You guys are going too fast right now. Gotta scroll up. Let's see. You're in a football game with your high school band Friday for something on songs since April. Yeah, different times. You have to make your own decision. Game time / breadstick fanatic. So your band director wants you to play tuba for concert band, and you said yes. And right now you're playing euphonium for marching band. Cool. Did you ever do marching band? How was it for you? I did not play in a marching band. It was not a requirement at my high school, and I didn't do it. Yep, no problem for voting. Let's see, voted in a mock election at school. Biden won. Yeah, it's good to practice voting and doing all that sort of stuff. When did the tuba stream? Yeah, I know it happened. It happened so quickly. All right. Let's see. Is there any other real questions? What was your starter instrument when you start learning brass? So I started on piano when I was 4. I started playing baritone when I was 9. So that was my first brass instrument. Your whole section uses videos for teaming, and they're perfect, but it would be really helpful if you had a Met in the background. I thought about doing that, and that may be more helpful, but I didn't do it. To me, I don't think that, you don't perform with a metronome. I know that especially in the state of Texas, metronome is very much a part of band, and I'm not saying the metronome is bad, but we don't need the metronome all the time. Let's see. Have you noticed in the big bands, the bass trombone tend to be tacit a lot, even when the entire band is playing? Thoughts on that? I think a lot of people don't know how to write for bass trombone, especially in a big band setting. They either write just like it's another tenor trombone, or they try to write a tuba part, and it's more complicated than that. But I'm glad that everybody's using the videos. That's what I make them for. So you want me to dab since you guys use my videos? See, it's just the moment I do it, then it's screenshotted, and then I'll do it eventually, but it won't be on YouTube because that'll be too easy to grab that. So if I do a live stream on Instagram, I'll do it at some point, but you'll never know, and you'll miss it. You won't be able to capture it. But yeah, boom, it's a meme. Yeah, that's how it goes. I've been memed before, and I've gotten better at not being memed, but probably shouldn't say that because then but yeah, you don't have an Instagram, then you'll never see me dab. So there's no way that all 21 people promise. I'm glad the Westlake tuba section loves the videos. But yeah, I'm glad that everybody's watching these streams. They seem to be getting more popular. I'm still going to keep privating them, I think. But yeah, I like doing them. And if you guys haven't seen my newest video, I did a video on all of my mouthpieces, just to plug that, like it's going to really do a lot. But I've got, I went through every single mouthpiece I have. That's a little more than half of them, I think. Those are just the small shank tenor trombone and euphonium mouthpiece. So I did a video on all of them. I think it's like 10 minutes long, but you can skip through it. I painstakingly went through and time-stamped everything. So what's your opinion on sousaphone? I personally prefer a 4-valve concert tuba, but played Sousa for marching band. I mean, sousaphone's cool. It's not a tuba, but it's a cool own thing that's like a tuba. But yeah, I don't own a sousaphone. Occasionally I get asked to play sousaphone gigs, and I generally borrow them. And a lot of times I get a sousaphone gig, and I don't do it because I can't do it or something. But if I can do it, I will, and I'll borrow one. Let's see. Streaming is the best way to increase following. Yeah, I think it does a good job. But but yeah, I mean, it'd be nice if I had millions of followers. I don't think that a low brass channel is likely to do quite that well into the millions, but especially because I don't really plan on doing like pop stuff or doing like multi-track covers or anything, which I know do really well. But yeah, that's not my intention. We played sousaphone in person today and blasted the national anthem out loud beautifully. Cool. Euphonium Gang. I'm a trumpet. Why are you here? Because of the algorithm. That's why. Saw the video. Yeah, I mean, part of it, Mr. Anonymous, you don't have to own that many. And I don't play all those mouthpieces. Really, that's I think the thing to think about is it's also just about having them for so long. And I don't really like to sell them. And who's going to buy I'm going to lose money if I sell an old mouthpiece versus me just keeping it versus getting like $50 for something. So, and you never know, you might find what I found, like this Tenniswick 12C. I got this in high school. I didn't have an instrument that I liked playing it with until grad school. But I kept it the entire time, and now it's my favorite alto trombone mouthpiece, and I like using it for commercial stuff on small bore tenor, but I didn't have that small bore tenor at the time. So you don't need them, but it's fun to play around with them, and at the end of the day, I know they're not free and they're not cheap, but $100 mouthpiece, when I was a kid, probably like many of you, I asked for mouthpieces for Christmas, even when I was an adult, because it's easy for me to send an Amazon link to my parents or my sister or something like, what do you want for Christmas? Do you want you want me to get you a shirt? And say, I don't really want a shirt. I've got shirts. But what I don't have is this specific mouthpiece that I think might be cool. And then I might get that as a Christmas present or a birthday present or whatever. So it's been years of doing that. And mouthpieces especially, you need to have the tool that you need. We talked about it a little bit with instruments before in a stream, but it's just like if you do some sort of contracting and you need a $60,000 F350, you need it because you need to haul that much. You need that diesel engine, you need all the bells and whistles. So you pay for it, but you make money using it, so it's okay. Do you need to go out and spend $300 on a mouthpiece to play in your high school band? Not necessarily. But I don't play any super expensive mouthpieces either. But I do have a collection of them. They pop up from time to time. You get them with an instrument, or I've friends leave mouthpieces here. Technically not mine, but it seems to stay here for a long time. But yeah, let's see. I like the mouthpiece vid. Peace out, fun stream. Thanks for creating stuff to tune into. Yeah, no problem. And if you guys have suggestions of videos like that mouthpiece one to do, I'm definitely open. Any tips on getting comfortable with improvisation, like keeping track of chord changes? I used to sing like the root notes of the chord changes all the way through, and then I'd sing like the thirds, and I'd sing the fifths, sing the sevenths. That would really help me really get tuned into it. I can plug you at my school for a small prize of a dab or free. Yeah, you're not going to get it, not tonight. What do you actually get out of being a DW artist? I have a relationship with them. It's there are definitely perks of it, but it's not like they just pay me a boatload of money or anything. But I can go to conferences and sometimes get in through that way or something like that. And it's nice getting some discounts on things. But let's see here. What's my insight? It's the same. It's low brass U. Saxophones can't play 16ths correctly. Probably not. I want to watch the dabbing live stream. Yep. Yeah, you got to go on Instagram. Eventually, I'll do it on Instagram. You gotta stay tuned. Is that a peace sign? You see, even that, I just know it's going to be memed. Especially now, I've given everyone that idea that it should be memed. I'm gonna sleep. Thanks for providing a wonderful environment. Yeah, or entertainment. Yeah, no problem. Hope you fulfill all your dreams. Yeah, got to get that chumbasso one day. How to play lead trombone in a jazz band. We definitely need a lot of time to talk about that. But a lot of it is leading by example. It's not just about high notes. Make sure your cutoffs are clear. Your cutoff should be exactly on the page, If it's a whole note, you hold it all the way to 1. If it's a half note, you hold it all the way to 3. You do those sorts of things. And if you're not going to do what's written, which you have the leeway to do as the lead player, you say, hey, I'm going to do this. It's their job to follow you, but I would always tell them that. So it's really those sorts of specific things, being extra prepared. That's the big thing. And as a very general thing, I personally don't add things if I'm playing with the trumpet section, because sometimes you're not lead trombone, you're 5th or 6th trumpet, your last chair trumpet. And so I don't add like a bunch of scoops and things like that in those situations. But when the trombones are alone, I feel like I have the ability to. You can definitely overdo it, but hopefully that gives you a few quick tips. Is $500 for alto horn good deal? It's chrome and new. Maybe, but probably not. Play trombone, but it's really, you're really good at hitting pedal B flat. Maybe you could entertain switching to tuba, but you don't necessarily have to. Do you have any lifelong dreams? Yeah, I do. I guess. I don't know. They're not all low brass related, so I don't know if we need to go into them. Playing second in a big band, your job is, generally you're taking solos, but if you're not playing solos, your job is to play right with the second trombone player, and specifically with the lead trombone player. With second, I think you can play too loudly. With third, I don't think you can, but for the most part, fill up that stuff since you're so much lower. But for second, help support the lead player, but don't overdo it, and just be right next to them. When I'm playing second, I generally don't copy the lead trombone player's inflections, but I'm aware of them. But as far as cutoffs and things, I'm always just listening. And what I would do is if we have a half note and it's off on 4 every time instead of off on 3, I'd listen for it the first time and say, okay, we're doing that. Next time around, I would kind of assume we're doing that, but I'd listen even closer. And then if he does it 3 times or he or she does it 3 times, I would say, okay, we're doing that. And I maybe would ask, but it depends on the situation, how comfortable you are with them. But yeah, it's really just staying on the lead player like glue. You could switch to euphonium. Favorite Jolly Rancher flavor? I don't know the last time I had a Jolly Rancher, but probably blue raspberry. What college did I go to? For my undergrad, I went to the University of North Texas. I did a degree in jazz trombone and tuba performance. And for my master's, I went to the Northwestern University outside of Chicago. And for my doctorate, which isn't complete yet, but I'm getting close, is also at the University of North Texas. So, well, cool. I think we can start to wrap it up there. But thank you, everyone, to being on the live stream. I'm looking forward to doing some more of these. Let's see. Okay, so this is specific. What do you do if your lead trumpet player is weaker, less experienced player than you? That'll happen. Trumpet players, you just try to, be kind to them. I wouldn't be mean, but I would try to do my part and play really accurately and everything. But if there are cutoffs all over the place, I might ask some questions. At the end of the day, if the trumpets sound bad, there's not much you can do. But all you can control is yourself. So, but yeah. Well, cool. Thanks everyone for hopping on the stream, and I will see you all next time.